some pretty strong affirmations for John that John does not hear. What did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, and more than a prophet. Declaring the way. And John is in prison, and John is not sure that this is the way it's supposed to be, because the expectation was different. The expectation was that the Messiah was going to come, this Messiah was going to break the bars of the prison, the Messiah was going to do away with all of these, everything that was wrong. They were being oppressed by the Romans. People are lame, people are blind, people are poor, people are sick, people are dying. People are enslaved and occupied. And is this really... Why aren't you fixing this? If you're the one, why aren't you fixing this? And probably every one of us has had that question for Jesus at some time, for God at some time. Okay, why aren't you fixing this? This isn't the way I want it. And so, Jesus says, go and tell John what you see and what you hear, what you have experienced. Go and tell John where you have found glimpses of the kingdom. The lame are healed. The blind see. Good news is preached to the poor. The lame are not eliminated. Lameness is not eliminated. The poor are still poor. They are receiving good news. The blind are given back their sight. These are all positive signs of the kingdom. And sometimes the positive signs of the kingdom get overwhelmed by all the other stuff. The stuff that causes John to say, is it really you or not? So, I know that as I get older, I have more and more trouble at this time of year. There's a lot of stuff that adds up, because a lot of things happen. People get sick. I was pretty young when I began to realize that people always get sick at Christmas time, even if it's just a cold. That always happens. Accidents happen because people are on the roads and because the roads are icy. This is almost the darkest time of the year. The shortest day, the shortest amount of light that we have at any time of the year happens this week. This week, the week of Joy Sunday. And that explains a lot about why we have lights and all kinds of things to counteract the darkness in lots and lots of traditions, not just our Christian tradition of Christmas, but lots of traditions. It's the season of deepest darkness, and we're talking about joy. Now, I have some lovely Norman Rockwell memories of Christmas. Not as many as Dick. Dick, I think, had Christmas at Norman Rockwell's mother's house. With the big turkey on the table, and all the kids, all the cousins, everybody sitting around, and the perfect traditional Christmas. And I have some pretty good memories of Christmas, and I have some really hard memories of Christmas, because there has been some hard stuff that has happened at Christmas. I remember at Christmas when we were anticipating a visit from my grandparents, my dad's parents, and my mother, being the good housewife that she was trying to get everything clean, everything cooked, everything ready, everything prepared, everything beautiful, everything perfect, everything Norman Rockwell, and she wasn't there yet, and the door opened and they came in, and she burst into tears. Because being glad to see them and joyful to see them was overwhelmed by all this other stuff that she was trying to do. I remember another Christmas that I didn't even really have Christmas, because I was working for somebody whose wife was having some serious health issues, serious health issues. And he was not able to be I was doing his job and mine because he was taking care of her. That was my Christmas present, basically. That was a rough Christmas. I didn't have much of a Christmas. I've got Christmases like that. I'm going to guess that that's probably true of everyone. I don't know about those guys back there. You had all good Christmases? Not really. No. Okay? See? So, and yet, Jesus says, go and tell John what you see and what you hear. Go and tell him the good stuff that you see is happening. One of the other lectionary readings for today comes from Isaiah, and it's the one that Charles read at the very end for the lighting of the candle. It's Isaiah 35. And that one verse, actually, there's a song that goes with that. I can't help but singing it in my head every time I hear it. So you can be glad that I didn't sing it out loud. It's just fun. So it does end with, the ransomed of the Lord shall return, come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness. Sorrow and sighing shall flee away. And that particular section of Isaiah starts with the wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. And the glory of Lebanon and the majesty of Carmel and the glory of the Lord, the majesty of God, shall be given to the desert. We who live in the desert are somewhat familiar with this. The desert is a dry place. It can be a dangerous place. We have people crossing the border, coming into the desert and dying because they don't have enough water, because it's either too cold or too hot, sometimes in the same day. And we know that the desert is a harsh place. And we know also that the desert is a beautiful place. One of the things that amazed me in Crane is that in the spring, it would be full of flowers, some of which were no bigger than this. Now, there were some thistles, too, that were like this, and they were spectacular. But a lot of the little flowers, no bigger than this, and some of them would only come out right after the rain. They're little rain lilies. They're like tiny, tiny little bulbs. I mean, the flower's only this big. You can't see it from your car driving up and down the highway. But if you're out there running through this, trying not to step on the mesquite branches, trying not to get chased by the javelinas, this is a desert, trying not to step on the rattlesnake. All of these things I have encountered running in Crane, in the desert, as well as the scorpions and tarantulas and stuff. But anyway, but you go out and you run and you see these little tiny, tiny rain lilies, these beautiful little perfect flowers. Some of them are pink and some of them are white. They're there. And there's little yellow flowers and little purple flowers and all kinds of little flowers. And if you just look across the desert like that, you sometimes can see that, especially with the yellow. You sometimes can see that kind of a view in the spring. And sometimes you can't unless you're looking right there at your feet. But it's there. That's the desert rejoicing. In spite of the harshness, in spite of the rattlesnake, in spite of the heat, in spite of the cold, in spite of the drought, 9 months in Crane without rain. In spite of that, the desert rejoices. And that's what Jesus has to say to us. Rejoice because you do see signs of the kingdom. No, we're not there yet. We are not there yet. We are not fully there. But there are signs. This is what Mary's talking about. Mary's singing before. Now remember Mary's situation. She has discovered that she, although not yet married, is pregnant. She's having to travel during the later stages of her pregnancy. They're having to go to their ancestral home to pay taxes. None of these are things that are particularly calculated to bring joy to a young woman's heart. And yet she sings this song. And in this song, she talks about how everything is reversed and unexpected and counterintuitive. My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. He has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. He has shown strength. He has scattered the proud and brought down the powerful and lifted up the lowly and filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel according to the promise of his ancestors. And she says that in the past tense. God has done this. She's still carrying this child. She's just beginning to carry this child. And she says this in the past tense. These are the things that God has done, that God is doing, and that God will do. And we are to rejoice. No, my Christmas is not going to look like Norman Rockwell this year either. There will be joy. There will be joy in some way that I don't necessarily expect. There may be joy in some ways that I do expect. I might even get to see my firstborn son. Who knows? And I may not. But there will be joy. There is joy. Because God is at work in the world. And sometimes you really, really have to slow down and look closely to see it. But it's there. It's there. The kingdom is here. Not completely. But it is here, and we can rejoice. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Amen.